When the power goes out in the dead of winter, you have 24 hours before your home becomes uninhabitable. Your pipes freeze, your food spoils, and hypothermia becomes a real threat. Most people think they're prepared until they're not. In this video, you'll learn the exact strategies to survive extended winter power outages, from keeping your water flowing when temperatures plummet below zero, to staying warm without electricity, to maintaining your sanity when the lights go out for days or even weeks. Because this winter, according to the Farmers Almanac, is forecasted to be one of the longest and snowiest in years. Welcome to Crisis Horizon, where we prepare you for the worst so you can handle anything. If you're serious about protecting your family this winter, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to learn could save your life. Let's talk about water first, because it's going to be your most immediate crisis. The moment your power goes out in winter, you need to act fast. Most people don't realize that when electricity fails, water systems can fail too. And in freezing temperatures, you're racing against the clock before your pipes turn into useless chunks of ice. Here's what you do in that critical first hour. Fill your bathtub immediately. Not later, not after you've checked on other things. Right now. A standard bathtub can hold over 100 gallons of water, and that becomes your emergency reservoir. But here's the problem most people miss. Water in an open tub evaporates, and you can lose a surprising amount over several days. That's where a water bulb comes in. It's essentially a large, food-grade plastic bladder that sits inside your bathtub. You fill it up, seal it, and now you've got clean, protected water that won't evaporate or get contaminated. Even if you think a water bob sounds excessive, get one. Store it under your bathroom sink. When that outage hits, you'll thank yourself for spending $30 on what could be your family's lifeline. But storing water is only half the battle. Your real nightmare is what happens to your plumbing system when temperatures drop below freezing and stay there. Water expands when it freezes, that's basic science. But when that expansion happens inside your pipes, the pressure builds until something has to give. And when a pipe bursts inside your walls, you're not just dealing with an outage anymore. You're dealing with thousands of dollars in water damage that won't even start showing up until the ice melts. Here's how you prevent that disaster. Turn your faucets on to a slow trickle. You don't need a stream, just enough that water is constantly moving. Moving water is significantly harder to freeze than standing water. This applies to every faucet in your house, especially those on exterior walls where pipes are most vulnerable to cold. Now here's something most people have never heard of unless they own an RV. RV Antifreeze. This stuff is specifically designed to prevent water systems from freezing, and it's non-toxic, which is crucial. Go to any auto parts store or camping supply shop and grab a few jugs. When the power goes out, pour RV antifreeze down every drain in your house, sinks, showers, and especially toilets. Why toilets? Because there's a part of your toilet called a P-trap, that curved section of pipe that holds water to prevent sewer gases from coming up into your house. When that P-trap freezes, the pipe can crack. And if your sewer line freezes, well, you've got a whole different problem on your hands. Pour that antifreeze into the bowl, flush it through the system, and you've just bought yourself protection against one of the worst plumbing disasters you can face. But let's be honest about something uncomfortable. In severe, prolonged cold, your toilet might freeze solid anyway. When temperatures stay well below zero for days, even with antifreeze, you might find yourself with a toilet that simply won't work. This is where most survival guides go silent, but we're not going to sugarcoat it. You need a backup plan for human waste. Stock up on heavy-duty contractor bags, the thick, durable kind that won't tear. Double bag them with regular plastic bags for extra protection. If your toilet becomes unusable, you line a bucket with these bags and that becomes your emergency toilet. It's not pleasant. Nobody's pretending it is, but it's reality, and you need to be mentally prepared for it. The critical thing is removing waste from your living space promptly. In cold weather, you can actually store sealed bags outside where they'll freeze solid, which helps with odor control. But maintaining basic hygiene standards during an extended outage could be the difference between staying healthy and facing serious illness when you're already in a crisis situation. Now, let's address the elephant in the frozen room: staying warm when your primary heat source is gone. Most modern homes rely on forced air furnaces, and here's the brutal truth: almost all of them require electricity to run. Even if you have a gas furnace, it needs power for the blower and electronic ignition. When the grid goes down, that heat goes with it. A lot of people think I can just run a generator. And yes, generators can help. But fuel runs out. Generators malfunction, especially in extreme cold. They're loud, they attract attention. And if you're in a widespread outage affecting your entire region, good luck finding more gasoline when every station's pumps are also down. Generators are a short-term bridge, not a long-term solution. So you need to think about heat retention before you even worry about heat generation. Your home is constantly losing warmth through windows, and in winter, that heat loss accelerates dramatically. Blackout curtains aren't just for sleeping, they add a genuine layer of insulation to your windows. The thicker, the better. Close them over every window in your house. Here's a trick that sounds weird but actually works. Bubble wrap. Cut sheets of bubble wrap to fit your windows and stick them up with a light mist of water. The bubble side faces the glass. This creates an insulating air pocket while still letting light through, and it's shockingly effective at reducing heat loss. Plus, it's cheap. A roll of bubble wrap costs maybe $10 and can cover multiple windows. Strategic room management is crucial. You don't need to heat your entire house, you need to heat the space where your family is actually living. Close off unused bedrooms, shut doors to hallways, block off sections of your home. You're creating a smaller contained area where your body heat and any alternative heat sources can actually make a difference. Trying to heat 3,000 square feet without power is impossible. Heating 300 square feet is manageable. When it comes to alternative heating sources, you've got several options and each has serious considerations. Buddy heaters run on small propane canisters, and they're popular because they're relatively safe for indoor use and fairly efficient. But here's what you need to know. One small propane canister lasts maybe 3 to 5 hours on a buddy heater. If you're looking at a 3-day outage, you need at least 15 canisters. A week-long outage, you're looking at 35 or more. Stock up before winter hits, because when the storms come, those canisters disappear from store shelves instantly. Kerosene heaters put out more heat than buddy heaters, but they come with stronger fumes and require better ventilation. You absolutely cannot run a kerosene heater in a completely sealed room. You need a window cracked at least an inch to prevent carbon monoxide buildup, which means you're losing some of that heat you're generating. It's a trade-off, but it's better than poisoning your family. If you have a fireplace, you might think you're set, but traditional fireplaces are actually terrible at heating homes. Most of the heat goes straight up the chimney, and you're often losing more warm air from your house than you're gaining from the fire. That's where fireplace inserts come in. An insert is basically a metal box that sits inside your fireplace and redirects heat into your room instead of up the flue. If you have a fireplace and you're serious about winter preparedness, an insert is one of the best investments you can make. Wood stoves are even better. They're specifically designed to heat living spaces efficiently. But if you're running any kind of wood-burning system, you need a chimney fire stop device. These are flare-like tools that you can deploy if a chimney fire starts, and they can extinguish it quickly before it spreads to your house. Chimney fires are more common than people realize, especially when you're burning wood constantly during an extended outage. No matter what heating source you're using, you need fire extinguishers accessible on every floor of your home. And this is non-negotiable. You need battery-powered carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. Carbon monoxide is odorless, colorless, and deadly. When you're running alternative heating sources, the risk skyrockets. Don't assume you'll notice symptoms in time. You won't. The detectors will save your life. Let's talk about what you're wearing, because this is where a lot of people make critical mistakes. Cotton is your enemy in winter survival situations. When cotton gets damp from sweat or humidity, it loses almost all of its insulating properties and actually pulls heat away from your body. This is how people get hypothermia even when they're wearing multiple layers. Wool is your friend. Wool retains heat even when wet, and it naturally wicks moisture away from your skin. Your base layer, the clothing directly against your body, should be wool whenever possible. Then you layer on top of that. Multiple thin layers trap air between them, and that trapped air is what actually insulates you. One thick layer doesn't work as well as 3 thin layers. For outerwear, you want something designed for extreme cold. Carhartt-style work jackets, insulated coveralls, or snowmobile suits aren't just for working outside. They become your indoor wear during an extended outage. Yes, you'll look ridiculous wearing a snowmobile suit in your living room, but you'll be warm. Here's something most people never consider: nighttime. When you're sleeping, you're stationary for hours, and your body temperature naturally drops during sleep. In a house without heat, this is when you're most vulnerable. A simple camping tent set up over your bed creates a microclimate. Your body heat gets trapped inside that small space instead of dissipating into the entire freezing room. This one trick can make the difference between sleeping uncomfortably and sleeping dangerously.
If things get really desperate, your car can serve as an emergency warming station. Run the engine and heater for 15 to 20 minutes to warm up, but you have to be extremely careful. Snow can block your exhaust pipe, and when that happens, carbon monoxide backs up into your vehicle. Before you start your car, get out and check that exhaust pipe, clear any snow. Then check it again halfway through your warming session. This isn't paranoia. People die from this every winter. Also know that in extreme cold, even your car's heater core can freeze solid. The heater core is the component that actually produces warm air, and if it freezes solid, running your engine won't do you any good. You'll just be sitting in a running car with cold air blowing at you, wasting precious fuel. Let's shift gears and talk about something more basic: food and how you're going to prepare it. If you have a gas range in your kitchen, you're ahead of the game. Most gas ranges will still work during a power outage because the burners are controlled by manual knobs and use a pilot light or can be lit with a match. You won't have an oven unless it has a manual ignition, but your stovetop should function normally. If you don't have a gas range, you need an alternative cooking method. Butane camp stoves are excellent for this purpose. They're portable, relatively safe for indoor use with proper ventilation, and the fuel canisters are inexpensive and easy to store. But just like with buddy heaters, you need to stock up on fuel. One canister might last for 3 to 5 meals, depending on what you're cooking. Calculate how many meals you might need to prepare during a week-long outage and stock accordingly. Here's your food consumption strategy. Eat your perishables first. When the power goes out, your refrigerator is on borrowed time. In winter, you actually have an advantage. You can move food outside or into an unheated garage where it'll stay cold naturally. But you should prioritize eating anything that will spoil quickly. Fresh vegetables, dairy products, meats from your fridge, these go first. Then move to your freezer contents. A full freezer can actually stay frozen for about 48 hours if you keep the door closed. After that, things start thawing. Cook and eat what you can while it's still good. Only after you've exhausted your perishables should you move to your shelf-stable, non-perishable supplies. Now, here's something that catches people off guard. Canned goods can freeze, and when they do, the liquid inside expands and can pop the can open. If you have a basement, store your canned goods there. Basements are below ground and maintain more stable temperatures. They'll freeze much slower than above-ground rooms. If you don't have a basement, consolidate your canned goods in whatever room you're actively heating and living in. If a can does freeze and pop open, you need to eat that food immediately. Don't let it sit. Once the seal is broken, bacteria can contaminate it, and in the survival situation, food poisoning is not something you can afford to deal with. Cook it thoroughly and consume it right away. Now, here's something that most survival guides completely ignore: your mental state. People focus so much on physical survival that they forget about psychological survival. When the power goes out, you lose internet, you lose television, you lose all the digital distractions that fill modern life. And the silence, the real heavy silence of a house without the constant hum of electronics, is unsettling. Boredom isn't just uncomfortable, it's corrosive to morale, especially for families with children, or for people who are used to constant stimulation. The psychological weight of sitting in a cold, dark house with nothing to do can break your spirit faster than the cold breaks your body. This is where preparation makes a huge difference. Get a crank radio or a solar-powered radio. Being able to hear news, weather updates, and even just music creates a connection to the outside world. It reminds you that this situation is temporary, that there are other people out there, that normalcy still exists somewhere beyond your frozen walls. Stock up on entertainment that doesn't require electricity. Board games, card games, jigsaw puzzles. These aren't luxuries, they're psychological survival tools. They give you something to focus on besides the cold and the darkness. They create moments of normalcy and even joy in an otherwise miserable situation. Choose activities that work in low light conditions. You're going to be relying on flashlights and lanterns, not overhead lighting. Card games and simpler board games work well. Intricate puzzles with tiny pieces become frustrating when you're squinting by flashlight. Think about what will actually be enjoyable in these conditions, not just what sounds fun in theory. Speaking of light, let's address that directly. You need multiple types of lighting solutions throughout your home. Rechargeable flashlights are fantastic if you have a solar generator to keep them charged. They eliminate the need to stockpile disposable batteries, which can be expensive and take up storage space. But you should also have battery-operated lights as backup. Batteries can be stored for years, and they work regardless of weather conditions. In the middle of a blizzard with no sun for days, your solar generator isn't going to be much help. Lanterns provide ambient light for rooms. They're better than flashlights for general illumination when you're trying to cook, play games, or just move around. Headlamps are essential for any task that requires both hands: cooking, repairs, organizing supplies. They keep your hands free while directing light exactly where you need it. If you have kids, squeeze lights, those small squeezable LED lights, are great. They're easy for children to use, they're fun, and they give kids some sense of control and independence during a scary situation. The key is variety and redundancy. Don't put all your faith in one lighting system. Have backups for your backups. Store lights in multiple locations throughout your house so you're never fumbling through total darkness trying to find the one flashlight you own. A solar generator is worth considering if you can afford it. These aren't the loud, gas-guzzling generators you might be thinking of. Solar generators are battery banks that can be recharged via solar panels. They're silent, they don't produce fumes, and they can keep your small electronics and rechargeable lights running for extended periods. They won't power your furnace or your refrigerator, but they'll charge phones, run LED lights, and power small devices. For extended outages, that capability is invaluable. Community connection matters more than most people realize. Isolation is crushing. If you have neighbors you trust, check on each other, share resources if possible. Even just knowing there are other people nearby who are going through the same thing provides psychological comfort.
If you're living alone, this is even more critical. The combination of cold, darkness, and total isolation can lead to dangerous decision-making. You might start taking unnecessary risks just to break the monotony, or you might fall into a depressive state that makes it harder to maintain your survival routines. Stay connected however you can. Use that crank radio. If you have phone service and battery life, make calls. Write in a journal. Maintain some sense of connection to the world beyond your immediate situation. After the crisis passes, after the power comes back on and life returns to normal, take time to review what happened. What supplies ran out faster than you expected? What worked better than you thought? What was missing from your preparation? Use that information to adjust your supplies and plans for next time, because there will be a next time. Winter storms aren't getting less severe, and infrastructure isn't getting more reliable. Preparation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. Every few months, check your supplies. Rotate your water storage. Make sure your batteries haven't corroded. Test your alternative heating sources to make sure they still function. Inspect your insulation materials. The worst time to discover your buddy heater doesn't work is when you're already freezing in the dark. Stock more than you think you'll need. The general rule is to prepare for twice as long as you think an outage might last. If you're in an area where 3-day outages are common, prepare for a week. If week-long outages happen, prepare for 2 weeks. The extra supplies you don't use become your buffer for the next emergency. They're not wasted, they're insurance. Winter power outages aren't just inconvenient, they're life-threatening. But now you know the 3 critical systems: water security, heat management, and mental resilience. Your water needs to be stored and protected before your pipes freeze. Your heat needs to come from multiple sources with redundant fuel supplies. And your mind needs to stay occupied and connected to maintain the will to push through. Start preparing today. Check your supplies, test your equipment, because when the storm hits, it's too late. You can't run to the store for propane canisters when the roads are impassable and the shelves are empty. You can't figure out how to use a water bob while you're already in crisis mode. What's your biggest concern about winter power outages? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And if this video helped you, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe to Crisis Horizon for more survival strategies. And remember, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Stay safe out there.